I'll just go ahead and start share. I'll share it on my page here. Yes, I'm ready. April 17th. All right. And welcome to the Sunshine Sports Report, where sports entertains, intersects with real life. And welcome to the Sunshine Sports Show Part 2. Yesterday's recording, for some reason, didn't have any sound. I'm not sure who to blame it on, but what we're going to do is we're going to redo it. We enjoyed doing the show yesterday so well that we wanted to make sure that you heard it. In many cases, the coronavirus is so prevalent in everybody's life. And yesterday, the mayor of Jacksonville, Florida, and by the way, this is where the show is being recorded here in Jacksonville, Florida, he made an announcement and to it. Those of you who haven't heard it yet.
Thanks for joining me. This video is to announce that as of 5 p.m. tomorrow, we will be reopening the beaches and parks throughout Duval County for essential activities only. This decision was made in collaboration with law enforcement, first responders, and the beaches mayors, Charlie Latham, Ellen Glasser, and Elaine Brown. As defined in Governor DeSantis' Executive Order 2091, essential activities include the following: participating in recreational activities consistent with social distancing guidelines, such as walking, biking, hiking, fishing, running, swimming, taking care of pets, and surfing. In addition to limits on activities, beaches will only be open from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. each morning and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. each evening. As for city parks, they will be open for normal hours from dawn to dusk. However, public gathering locations will remain closed. And very important, my executive order for social distancing guidelines that limits gatherings to fewer than 50 people still stands. For additional information and restrictions, please go to coj.net and look for this press release. Folks, this can be the beginning of the pathway back to normal life. But please respect and follow these limitations. Stay within the guidelines for your safety as well as for the safety of your neighbors. As I mentioned in this morning's press conference, the data for Duval County is encouraging. For now, we need to stay the course and continue taking precautions. We'll get back to life as we know it, but we must be patient. We're close. Thank you, and have a safe weekend.
And that was recorded yesterday. That was a recording that Mayor Curry talked about. So when he says tomorrow, it's today. So at 5 o'clock, about 4 hours from now, the beaches and local parks will be open here in Jacksonville, Florida from 5 to 8 starting today. And starting tomorrow, the beaches will be open along with the parks from 6 to 11 and then again from 5 to 8. Now, where do you fall on this side of it? There is very little testing actually been going on in the country. I think I heard like in a state of California where there's like, 40 million people, there's been a testing of maybe 200,000 people. Same thing in Florida. not very many people have been tested. So the fact of the matter is, no one knows how many people have been actually infected. They have a model, and they don't know if the model is correct or not. Now, where do you fall on? Do you think that the beaches should be back open again? Because remember, during spring break when college kids hit the beach, the state of Florida got a real bad rap about that. So same thing in New Orleans with the Mardi Gras. Real bad rap because there were people infecting people in New Orleans, and then not only was it staying there in New Orleans, it was being taken back to other parts of the country. Same thing here in Florida with the spring break. People were being infected on the beach, and the infection was going, once the kids left the state of Florida, going back to their college campuses or back to their hometowns, they were infecting others. Now, I know that we have a social distancing policy in effect, but do you think maybe they should have waited until more testing was being done? If you have a comment on this, drop it down in the comment section. Also, share and like the show. So, really, I think what we're going to do is we're going to get back into sports, or start sports. Early this week, it was confirmed by Vince McMahon and his people that the XFL is no more. They have declared bankruptcy, or will be declaring bankruptcy. So it looked like that the XFL was going to it was going to be viable because of the partners that it had. ESPN was on board with it, along with Disney. So you saw some of the games on ABC as well as on ESPN. They also had a deal with Fox. Some of the games were shown on the Fox network. Other games were shown on FS1 and also FS2. So they had a lot of things that were going for them. The first couple of weeks, the ratings were good. Pretty much knew they were going to be good. The ratings kind of dipped the second, third, fourth week, but that was to be expected. Unfortunately, I guess the coronavirus kind of put an end to that, because just like everything else, there were other partners that they had to satisfy. The stadiums, they could pay the stadium for hosting the games. ESPN weren't generating any money revenue from not being able to have the games on TV along with FS1 and Fox. So I guess it was just a chain of bad situations that caused FS1 and the XFL to go down. It was a lot different than the first time. Now, one of the things that the XFL did was it provided players to the NFL. And about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, the NFL was actually able to sign some of the XFL players. And it was actually like a farm system for the NFL. That goes away now with the XFL going under. Now, they also introduced some exciting rule changes to the game, where the no kickoffs or extra point kicks. Rather, you either had to go from the line of scrimmage on the 2, the 5, or the 10-yard line, and that was exciting. They also had the 2-minute rule, where and then at the last 2 minutes, then things slowed down. The clock stopped on on each play for the offense if they were behind to try to catch up. So maybe some of these rules will be adopted by the NFL. Now, speaking of Vince McMahon really became famous for being the head of the WWF, which later became the WWE. And this week, the governor of the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis, he deemed the WWE an essential business during this COVID-19 situation, which means that they can operate, which means that I'm not sure, I think maybe it's tonight, they're going to have their first live broadcast in a little while. That means that Vince McMahon can now satisfy the sponsors for the WWE, as well as Fox's sponsors, who sponsor the broadcast on Fox. So one of the things that they had to do was they had to satisfy the number of live programming that the WWE produced each week. What about Shad Khan's? What about his son?
His son runs the wrestling here.
Right. Okay, and Shad Khan's son does run here. Are they an essential? Oh, okay. So Tony Khan also the business will be running. So Tony Khan his shows will be live as well. I just got my producer just let me know that, and but anyway, Vince McMahon had to have so many live shows to satisfy his contract, and so now the contract will be satisfied, and Vince will get all the money that that he was hoping for the wrestling that they will have on Fox television. Unfortunately for a lot of the wrestlers, Vince had to either put some of them on furlough or just outright release them. So now some of the wrestlers are looking for places to go. So in light of what my producer just told me, perhaps some of them will wind up with Tony Khan's wrestling outfit. So now, today it was announced that an NFL football player, well, actually two NFL football players, a lineman for the LA Rams was diagnosed with the COVID-19 virus. So now, how do you ensure that the wrestlers don't infect one another? Or do you ensure it? If it happens, it happens. Now, our president over the last week or so has stated that he wants the country governor the right to see how they want to open up their states. Clearly, Ron DeSantis wants the state of Florida to open back up. It's a tourist area. Florida is. It's always been a tourist spot, and I guess they want to open the tourist business in some way, shape, or form. Now, the thing is, though, if we keep infecting one another, how can we combat the COVID-19? You know, it's kind of confusing. It's a catch-22. So we'll keep an eye on that. And when next week when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about it. By the way, next week this will be a week from today. Will be day 2 of the NFL draft. NFL draft starts 6 days from from today. Today is, as we film this particular show, is April 17th. So 6 days from now, I guess the 23rd will be the first day of draft. Now, moving on to other things, and remember a baseball player by the name of Josh Hamilton. Josh Hamilton was a baseball prodigy. He was the #1 pick by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, the early part of the 2000s, late 1990s. Josh Hamilton had played for several teams, but before he had a chance to really play, Josh suffered from substance abuse. So he never really got a chance to play for the Tampa Devil Rays. He was traded to the Cincinnati Reds, and that's where he started his major league career. And from Cincinnati, he was traded to the Texas Rangers. Mid-2000s, around 2010, Josh Hamilton was an all-star baseball player, one of the best players in baseball. Really a 5'2" player. Could hit with power, a strong arm, real good fielder, and for his size, fairly fast. He was so good, not only did he make the all-star team, he was league MVP around 2010 for the Texas Rangers. Unfortunately, Josh, he had a setback. He slipped the substance abuse issues that he had when he was first drafted by the Tampa Devil Rays. So he was able to fight off those demons, and he continued his baseball career in Texas. And then another tragedy befell Josh Hamilton. You know how outfielders during the middle innings, when they go back out on the field, they play catch with the fans. The right fielder will throw the ball into the stands, and then the fan will throw the ball back, and then maybe 5 or 6 times. And once the player feels like his arm is loose, he'll thank him and play the inning. And Josh Hamilton was interacting with one of the fans this particular game. Unfortunately, Josh threw the ball into the stands, and the fan, I guess, lost his footing. He slipped, and he fell, killing him. And from there, I guess Josh, it was just a freak accident. But from there, Josh probably wanted out, and I think the Rangers probably saw that, and they traded him to the LA Angels. He played for the Angels for about 4 or 5 years, and his career ended. He stopped playing or retired around 2015. And we hadn't heard much from Josh until last part of last year, around October of 2019. Josh was arrested for child abuse, October 30th, I believe. And it appears that Josh, who is a divorcee, had one of his daughters over, and when the daughter, a 14-year-old girl, when the girl went back to her mother to stay, she mentioned that there was an incident. Apparently, or allegedly, Josh had struck her. Now, some say that the girl had said something to Josh, and Josh didn't like it and struck her. Now, this is all allegations. Nothing has been proven yet. But the early part of this this week, Monday, I believe, Josh was indicted on child abuse charges stemming from that October 30th incident. So, hoping everything turns out well in the whole Hamilton family, not only for Josh, but for Josh's daughter. Josh has had, as I've documented, Josh has had a lot of kind of tough issues to deal with, and hopefully Josh can get over this, and his daughter has no long-lasting effects as well. So, good luck to Josh and his family. Now, let's talk some more baseball. Now, Major League Baseball, and this is not official. This is just something that they're kind of kicking around once each state kind of opens up for more activities to take place. I think I was hearing that the Trump administration has 3 phases, and I think phase 1 is to slowly open things back up, and then phase 2 will be attendance of sports and restaurants and stuff like that. But for right now, phase 2 would be getting sports back into the American life. And so Major League Baseball is preparing for this. They know that if they play a game this year, it's going to have to be without fans in the stand. So what some people are proposing in Major League Baseball is just to have 2 states host Major League Baseball for this season. That's Arizona along with Florida. And those are 2 states where actually spring training takes place anyway. So there is the ball teams actually do have a structure in each state. And so there's a proposal that they play roughly, I'm not 106, maybe 112 game season. I guess it all depends on when they can actually start playing. So the league will look differently. There won't be a national league or an American league. It will be teams that play in Arizona that would be a league, and teams who play in Florida, that would be another league. And let me pull this up so I can tell you which teams are playing against which. It would be a culmination of each division playing one another 12 games, and there would be 3 divisions actually, and each division would play one another 12 games, and the other 2 are outside of your division. You would play the other teams 6 games. Now, from what I understand, the Chicago Cubs are probably best suited or in a good position, because in Arizona they are roughly 10 miles away from each team they would have to play. So, and let me see if I can find, okay, let me see if I can pull this up here. I'm not getting it, but what I'll do is I'll try to go back to it, and we can go over where which teams will play and what division they're in. But keep in mind that This is all depending upon what happens with the coronavirus. We really don't know. We're all in a flux right now as far as that's concerned. Some bad news in tennis, or at least I feel like it's bad news. Coco Gauff, last year's tennis sensation, who I believe she's from Florida too. She's come clean and admitted that she suffers from depression based upon her playing tennis. The pressure of playing tennis has been so much because she plays at a high level. The competition is so high. She's being compared to some of the greats that have played in the past. Jennifer Capriati, the Williams sisters. Each tournament that she appears in, she's expected to do well. She's expected to advance to the finals, semifinals, or somewhere. And that's a lot of pressure for a young lady who's only like 16 years old right now. And so she was saying that tennis just was not fun anymore for her. She was thinking about perhaps taking a year off to recharge your batteries and try to find some type of joy in playing tennis. Now, tennis is a one-person sport, really. It's true that you have a support system, and her family, her mother and her father are there. The problem is that her mother and her father have not experienced what she's experiencing. She's 16 years old, and as my producer mentioned, that a 15, 16-year-old wants to do other things besides play tennis. And the pressure is, and she's always on the go. And not only is she on the go, but she's traveling not only in this country, but in other countries. So she doesn't have really a social life. And a lot of times, parents know that but can't see it and really have no way of coping with it. I was discussing yesterday how this happens in basketball, in the NBA, it happens in Major League Baseball, it happens in the NFL, it happens in soccer, where young players come up against what I'll call a wall, like Coco has come up against. But what they do have is other players on their team or former players who are still connected to the team that can empathize with her and have been in her spot and have done and seen some of the things that she's experiencing. And they can lay some of their wisdom on her and to let her know what they did. Now, Marlon, one of my contributors, he's always mentioned, always said that a young player, a college age player, shouldn't play NFL or the NBA because they don't have, they're not equipped to play socially or emotionally. In this case, it's probably pretty evident that Coco was just not ready for what she was going to run up against as far as being, we'll just call her a superstar in the world of tennis, and so much attention put on her. Now, she says that she's doing better, and once again, thoughts and prayers go out to Coco. And if she's, unfortunately, one thing that this COVID 19 has done is delayed the playing of, of tennis. Now, unfortunately, some of the things that she would want to do aren't available, like socializing with people of her own age, attending school, or just being a teenager. She's still not going to be able to do that simply because of the isolation that we're now experiencing. So, like I say, thoughts and prayers go out to Coco and her family, and hopefully things get back to normal for Coco, and maybe she can get back on the court at some other date. Now, I was able to pull up that baseball, well, not schedule, but the divisions, and they're calling it the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League, pretty much what they call it anyway. In Florida, in the Grapefruit League, the New York Yankees would play in the North Division, along with the Philadelphia Phillies, the Toronto Blue Jays, Detroit Tigers, and Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, in the North, you've got three American League teams and the two Pennsylvania teams who are National League teams. Once again, no American, no national, just the location of where you are. And what they tried to do is they tried to get, as far as divisions are concerned, teams that play nearest to one another in spring training. Now in the South, you've got the Boston Red Sox, that's South Florida, Boston Red Sox, Minnesota Twins, the Atlanta Braves, the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Baltimore Orioles. And in the East, you have the Washington Nationals, the Houston Astros, the New York Mets, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Miami Marlins. Now, each team in the division in the East would play one another 12 times. The East would go play the South. They would play those teams 6 times, and in the North, they would play 6 times. Or so you can transpose that to any team. So it's 12, 6, and 6. And then they would have a championship game, and the championship game team would play the Cactus League champions, which would consist of, in the Northeast, the Chicago Cubs, the San Francisco Giants, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Colorado Rockies, and the Oakland A's. Most of all those teams, in fact, all but one, are National League teams. The A's being the only American League team. But once again, that doesn't and won't matter, because it's now you're playing the team within your state. In the West, you got the LA Dodgers, that's West Arizona. You've got the LA Dodgers, the Chicago White Sox, the Cincinnati Reds, the Cleveland Indians, and the Los Angeles Angels. And in the Northwest, you have the Milwaukee Brewers, the San Diego Padres, the Seattle Mariners, and the Texas Rangers. And to end it all, the Kansas City Royals would play in the Northwest. Once again, Northwest would play one another 12 times. The West would play one another 12 times, and the Northeast teams would play one another 12 times. And the Northeast teams would then go and play the West team 6 times, and 6 times in the Northwest. Once they get a champion, then the champion would go on to play the champion of the American League, of the Grapefruit League. Now, it is tentatively scheduled for to be played in Florida. Now, there are, between the two states of Florida and Arizona, there are actually two major league stadiums. That's the Diamondback Stadium, which is right outside of Phoenix, and also in Florida you have the Miami Marlins Stadium. You also have the Tampa Rays Stadium down in Tampa. So I'm not sure where they would play the championship game, other than it would be played in the state of Florida with no fans. Now, you ask about, well, the National League doesn't have the DH, but for this particular season, each team would have a DH. It would be universal, and one of the reasons for that is to save the arms of the pitchers, because once they pick up again, everybody's going to have to get into playing shape pretty quickly. So what they want to do is they don't want to blow out any arms or any pitching arms, or they want to remove all chance of that. So each team will play with a DH, which means that probably, in fact, they have said that the roster will indeed be expanded, and they may expand it even more now that DH is involved. So the game will definitely look different to the National League fans when they see him, because they're used to seeing their team at least play at home with no DH, or when they play another National League team, there's no DH. The games will have to be managed differently. It will be probably a higher scoring type of game, because there won't be sacrifices. They'll be looking for more home runs, because they'll have that pitcher spot will be now occupied. When I say spot, the batting order, there will be more pop in the batting order. So what's going to happen is a player who may not be such a great defensive player will now get a chance to play more often, because now he doesn't have to go onto the field. Teams are going to be looking for players who hit home runs, and the home run hitters tend to strike out a little bit more. So you probably will have more strikeouts as well. So let's see if this does come to fruition, that they do indeed start to play baseball, and it happens. You know what? I would be interested to see what it would look like for at least the season, to see everybody use their DH all the time. Let's talk a little college. Let's talk a little college football. College football is, in the past, teams that didn't live, or teams in their immediate area didn't have fertile high school football, or they just didn't have the numbers to generate a lot of football players going to staff, or to on their roster, like to recruit. Well, what they used to do is they would scour the country for junior college players. In fact, a really good junior college player was Walter Jones, and I'm not sure what junior college he came from, but he wound up playing at Florida State and was an All-American at Florida State for just 1 year. He was drafted in the NFL, had a tremendous professional career, and he wound up actually going to the Hall of Fame. So Walter Jones' career all started in junior college, and that's how a lot of football teams, college football teams, they filled out their roster, the football roster, and Mississippi State comes to mind because Mississippi State, small population, not a whole lot to choose from as far as high school's football players are concerned. Not like, say, the state of Florida, which has South Florida, all up and down South Florida, because the population is just so big and so great that you could find just about any type of player you want in South Florida because of the population. Well, Mississippi State didn't have that. Mississippi State, so what they did was they went out to the junior colleges and they filled out the roster. They never, at least in recent date, even challenged for a national championship team, but they were always able to put out a decent team. And that's how a lot of schools did it. And Mississippi State certainly was not the only school to do it in college. Well, now they have another way of doing it. It's called the grad students who graduate, and one of the best known grad students is Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks. He started out at the University of Maryland playing his college football. He was a really good college football player for the University of Maryland. The University of Maryland didn't have a great team, but they were decent, a decent college team. Russell completed his undergrad work at Maryland and was able to go on to grad school at the University of Wisconsin. Russell had a really, really good career at Wisconsin. Somehow or another, Wisconsin actually used him to perfection. It helped him in his draft stock, although I think he was like a third, maybe a fourth round pick. He probably had he just went into the draft after graduating from Maryland, probably would not have gotten drafted. But he was a mid to late round draft pick for Seattle. He gets to Seattle, and now he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, maybe top 5, top 6 quarterbacks. And it all helped him being a grad student as a college player. Well, they're doing it now at Florida State. Florida State, which has had some rough going over the last 6-7 years, they have brought in at least five grad students. One student is defensive end Deontay Williams. He played his undergrad work at Baylor. Now Williams, Williams is a common name anyway, but his dad, Alfonso Williams, played for the Seminoles from 1985 to 1988. He was a defensive back. Williams got hurt the last couple of seasons, and so he has decided to transfer to Florida State. Florida State also picked up Miko Dotson. Miko Dotson, he played for FAU, Florida Atlantic University. The thing about Miko is that he's had 9 interceptions, which was a school record for FAU, and tied for the nation as far as most interceptions for a player. And now he's moving on to FSU. He's from the state of Florida. He also had 30 tackles along with 3 breakups. Texas A&M also sends another student to Florida State. His name is Jason Corbin, who is a running back. Jason will have to get a waiver in order to play this season. Apparently, he feels like he may be able to. Now, I haven't seen this anywhere, but I assume that Florida State may have been on his radar coming out of high school because he wound up at Texas A&M, and that Texas A&M is where Jimbo Fisher coaches. So maybe he decided to go to A&M because he was recruited by the Jimbo Fisher coaching staff. So we'll see. And Florida State needs to bulk up that running back stable because, of course, they lost Cam Akers this year. He decided to put his name into the NFL draft. Also, Florida State got another in-state commitment to come play with them, and that's FIU's Devontae Taylor. Taylor is a offensive lineman. He played at FIU for the last 3 years. In the last 2 years, he played 25 out of the 26 games that they played. So that's how you kind of fill out your roster. From if most of these players make it, especially on defense, what will happen is Florida State now will go from somewhat experienced as far as the defense is concerned to experience, because they could have 10 of their 11 players be either seniors or juniors if some of these players make start for the Seminoles. So, and Florida is doing the same thing. Florida has lost 3 of their top wide receivers, and they have gone out and brought in a couple of wide receivers from the grad assistant program. So things evolve, things change. It used to be junior college, and now they're actually going for more experience in playing in big-time college schools. On Sunday, well, actually, once again, COVID-19 rears its ugly head. You know about virtual sports? There's no sports right now being played, no major sports being played. So what they're doing now is playing virtual sports. ESPN has a horse contest going on. In fact, actually, it's over now. From what I understand, it was won by, I'm not even sure who won it, but it's over. So what they did was they were at separate locations where they played the game of horse. In basketball, they also had a 2K tournament where NBA players played against themselves, again from separate locations. So NASCAR is no different. They wanted to stay relevant. They wanted to be within the public eye. So what they did was they had a tournament where race drivers would race against one another virtually. And this young man by the name of Kyle Larson who drives for the Ganassi Racing. Well, apparently, well, do we have that video? We're gonna play the video, and then we'll come back and talk to you about it.
Moving to their new stadium in 1967, where the Ducks have been playing their home games ever since. Still, Haywood Field has plenty of historic significance for the football team, and it's only fitting that the logo pays homage to his first ever venue. But that's only half the logo. The O represents their new stadium, which is in the same shape. Take a look at the stadium overhead, and you can just see it so perfectly clear. Aren't logos fascinating? What other college logos have hidden meanings? Join me in the comment section below. Make sure to follow myself and Total Pro Sports on social media. We post great content all the time. If you like this video, give it a like.
Okay. Was that a slip of the tongue? Or was he used to saying it? Apparently, there was some type of technical difficulty. I don't know if there was something happened with his race car or anything. And I'm not even sure why he even used the N-word. And I don't know who he was referring to when he used the N-word. That was unclear. But the day that happened, he lost a couple of sponsors. The next day, by the way, that happened last Sunday. Monday comes around and NASCAR suspends him. 3 days later, the Ganassi Racing fires him. So now, and in between all of that, Kyle goes on and he apologizes. And apparently the apologies weren't accepted because, like I said, the Ganassi Racing, they went ahead and fired him. Now, this is my point. I thought about it all day. And I really think this is a teachable moment. Now, a lot of you may disagree with me. In fact, I've run across one guy who's already disagreed with me. Why not getting rid of someone, find out, why don't we make this something that can be learned from? Now, back when our president, President Trump, decided that maybe he should invite the black college presidents to the White House so he can take a picture with them. And the black college presidents thought it was in their best interest to go to the White House and have that picture taken with them. And perhaps they would be able to get more funding for their particular schools, and it could help more black students
Kyle, you're talking to everyone but
attend colleges. In fact, just more students in period. More students, period. Because this is a fallacy that only black students attend historically black colleges, because that's not true. I see plenty of Caucasian students who attend our local historically black colleges. And so, in fact, many of their sports teams are filled with only Caucasian individuals. So it's not just it will help a black kid, it will help kids in general. Now, some of the things that were promised to the black college college presidents, they got. Some of the things that were promised, they didn't get. But the thing is, they didn't control the narrative in any case. They never controlled the narrative. How about some of those historically black college presidents reach out to this young man, find out a little bit about him, find out if indeed something good can come from this. If this was just a thing where he said something off color, or that can be fixed. They can use NASCAR. They can use this young man to advance some of their needs. Now, I don't, I don't like, or do I say what he said, but let's find out, why did he say it? Why did he feel so comfortable saying it? And see if he can be the face of someone trying to make a statement for this, and let the historically black college presidents control the narrative. NASCAR is a huge industry within this country. In fact, Bubba Wallace, who is the only black NASCAR racer, says he forgives him. He says what he said was not right. He said it too freely, but he does indeed forgive him. Yeah, let's raise some money, because historically black colleges have, since I've been around, one of their main things is raising money. Why don't they put one of the cars be a historically black college racing car? If you're visible, people will know about you. It couldn't hurt. And maybe restore this kid. He's only 28 years old. And maybe this could be something good. Like I say, always look for things to restore your narrative. Before we get out of here, we were always said that running backs were one of my favorite positions in football. And up until, 15 years ago, they were premium. You had to have at least 1, 2, maybe 3 running backs in the first round. Now you don't have that. It's rare to see a first-round draft pick be a running back now. I really found out he really wasn't worth the money to the L.A. Rams that he thought he was. Melvin Gordon of the L.A. Chargers. He wasn't. He didn't draw the money he thought he was going to draw from the Chargers. So he wound up going to the Denver Broncos for far less money. Deontay Freeman, even though he was injured, he's still, as far as I know, still unsigned. And this is a Super Bowl talented running back who's unsigned. Well, the Carolina Panthers, a team that finished under 500, I think for the 3rd straight year, well out of the conference, the division championship, didn't make the playoffs. They feel that they have a running back that is the best in the NFL, and they signed him for not 1 year, but 4 years for $64 million. Now, I don't know how much is guaranteed of that $64 million. Not a clue. And this guy is good. He's had a tremendous career. But if running backs are devalued, how does Christian McCaffrey, who plays on a sub-500 team, deserve to get $64 million? And the position is devalued. Now, I am a big Christian McCaffrey fan. I liked him when he was at Stanford. In fact, when we were doing our radio show, I said, and I believe that was the same year that the Jaguars drafted Jalen Ramsey. I said before the draft, if the Jaguars don't take a defensive player, the only offensive player I would even consider using the first round draft pick on would have been Christian McCaffrey. Excuse me. Now, I still don't get and he's played as well as I thought he would play, maybe even better than I thought he would play. He's a well put together young man, but he touches the ball close to 400 times a season, or at least he did last season. Where is the fear of him getting hurt? Where's the fear where you have the fear of other running backs getting hurt who touch the ball half that time, half as much? I'm just wondering if there's a double standard. That's all. You know, I mean, he's good. He's a Pro Bowler. If I was going to start a team, maybe Christian McCaffrey would be my running back. But he's not going to be my running back at that price. And it was a whole deal where he didn't have to sit out. He didn't have to lobby for the money. The Panthers were happy to give it to him. So what is it? You know, I thought the whole idea was to have a winning football. And as many highlights as you see, they could probably put that money to other positions. Because if you're not winning, it doesn't matter what the highlights look like. It's all about the stadium. So, this is going to be another edition of the Sunshine Sports Report on 904 Live. And I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you taking the time. I also want you to share and like, if indeed you did like it. Drop comments, suggestions, and things along the line. Now, next week will be our NFL draft show, and we'll critique those players that are picked while we're on the air. And we won't have to guess who they are. We will already know who they are. And hopefully we will be able to critique the top 10. Until next week, this is Greg Daniels of the Sunshine Sports Report, where sports and real life intersect.